2025 was quite a year for John Reid. The former broadcaster ran a historic race for lieutenant governor, being the first openly gay candidate to receive a major party endorsement in Virginia. The Republican came up short on Election Day, but the first-timers campaign impressed many seasoned politicos, especially considering the fact that the governor, a member of Reid's own party, asked him to drop out in the early stages of the race in the midst of a controversy over sexually explicit photos. Today, Reid returns to Untold to tell his side of the story. Well, John Reid is back with me on Untold. Thanks for coming back again, John.
I'm glad to see you. Last time, I was just kind of feeling my way through a lot of stuff, and here we are on the other side of a statewide election and a lot of drama.
What better time to sit down and get the Untold version of exactly how this campaign went? The famous phrase everyone always says is that I learned way more in defeat than I ever did in victory. And obviously,
I'd like to try the other side of it, just to be honest.
I'm sure that wasn't your preferred goal, to be experiencing it from the defeat side. But what did you learn?
Well, running for office, whether you're running for Board of Supervisors or, my dad represented Henrico County for 18 years, 9 different elections in Henrico, but it was a very different county then. And Virginia has changed. Mm-hmm. It's always been competitive. You think you had Chuck Robb, Jerry Beliles, Doug Wilder, 3 boom, 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 back-to-back Democrat governors in the 80s into the 90s. So it's a competitive state, mm-hmm. And no political party should assume that they've got a lock on things, and they need to be thoughtful about the policies they implement. But I have more respect for the idea, at least, of the Virginia curse than ever. And mm-hmm. the Virginia curse, of course, is whichever party is represented in the White House, we then have the next election in Virginia, and the other party generally picks that up. And when you start to look at the numbers of what happened in 2025, you see that Democrat voters and, can I be blunt, people who really, really, really despise Donald Trump, they were motivated to turn up mm-hmm. and vote. Mm-hmm. They told me to their face, to my face. Yeah. Some people liked me and said they were still voting Democrat because they just couldn't vote for a Republican, which hurt my feelings a little bit, but that's reality. And then there were some people like, I don't give a damn who you are. I am voting Democrat because I hate President Trump. Right. Surely, let's be honest, there were some people who didn't like my policies either, and I can accept that. But I think that was the driving force. What's disappointing to me, and this is something that the Republican Party is going to have to grapple with quickly, is that there were a lot of Republican voters who did support Trump previously, mm-hmm. who showed up in 2020, showed up in 2024, showed up in 2017, 2016, who didn't turn out this time. Now, what was that? Was that they're comfortable with Trump and they feel like, he's taken care of them? Was that they didn't like our ticket? They didn't like me in particular? I did relatively well, especially when you stack up, Winsome and Jason and the other candidates.
You got more votes than Winsome, right? Winsome Sears?
I did, and one of the things that's been frustrating for me is I want to go on social media, and so many people have written nice things about my campaign because I really did work hard. I didn't take a day off from January 27th.
Yeah, I think anyone that saw the campaign you were running, especially with the funds you had in the bank, that's public information, and you really didn't have any money to work with, right?
It was pathetic.
Yeah.
The money was pathetic.
You were doing it like boots on the ground.
It was the old-fashioned way.
Right.
I
think Doug Wilder would have been proud. I think he was.
When I think we talked about this when I came in months ago. Mm-hmm. I went and met with every former governor I could meet with. I sat with George Allen and Susan Allen for 4 hours at their house and said, should I do this? Will the Republicans support me? Is this crazy? Is this an ego thing, you think? Or when I articulate what I want to try to accomplish, do you think this is real? They were wonderful. I talked to Jim and Roxanne Gilmore mm-hmm. before she passed away, mm-hmm. former governor. I went and talked to Doug Wilder. And Doug Wilder said, I don't know that he would agree with me comparing my situation as a gay candidate to him as the first black man running for lieutenant governor and governor. But he did say there will be people all across the state who are skeptical, who will decide before they even meet you that they hate you. And the only chance you have is to get in the car and drive around the state and give them a chance to talk to you, to shake your hand, to look in your eyes and determine for themselves whether you're serious or whether you're not, whether you understand why they should vote for you and are willing to listen to them. And that was great advice because especially when the money didn't come in and I couldn't do what my opponent did, which was basically blow $2 million in the last 20 days of the campaign on television ads, no offense to Channel 6, but I didn't have that money. Going around the state was the only way that I could try to compensate for that. And that's the hard work that most candidates I probably don't want to do. And then let's be honest, if I had had kids, oh my God, how could you have done this?
Yeah.
Couldn't have done it.
When you were doing it, did you feel like you hit a stride? I mean, I feel like at some point, I know it was grueling, but it looked like you were enjoying yourself.
I enjoyed meeting people. Look, I was a TV reporter for a long time, a talk show host. I like talking to people, even people who don't agree with me. I'm not as crazy as Bill Clinton. You know, Bill Clinton, I'm told from people who campaigned with him, if you said you didn't agree with him, it was a personal quest to shift you to his side. Right. And he would turn on the charm to do that. I'm not obsessed like that. But when someone said, as long as it wasn't a personal thing, if it was a policy issue, I'm happy to talk to people.
Right.
And I enjoyed doing that.
You did it on your radio show for years.
Yeah,
I mean, that's basically what you did every morning.
No problem, right?
Yeah.
And I felt good about myself. At the end of the day, there were so many events that I went to that started at 7 p.m. and I would be standing in the front of the room, and there was always wonderful food, and sometimes there was an open bar, or people were eating and having a good time, and I'm standing there talking to people, and I watch the food be eaten, and then I watch the food disappear and be packed up.
The caterers walk away with the empty trays,
and I haven't had anything, but I felt like I'm doing the work.
Yeah.
Because when this place closes, I'm the last guy walking out the door, and I'm trying to convince people to give me something that I still, maybe people will laugh at me when I say this, a sacred trust of I'm going to vote for you with confidence that you will make good decisions, that you'll be thoughtful, that you won't let anger or hostility motivate the judgments that you're making. And for the people that I got to meet, I think I did a pretty good job of articulating where I am on issues. And I know I won a lot of them over because I don't think that the final result would have been the same had I not been willing to put in that work and listen to people.
Well, when you were here last, we had a long conversation about being the first openly gay candidate to seek statewide office, and certainly as a Republican, how hard that hurdle is to get over. When you actually got out there and were face to face with some of these people who are really diehard GOP, maybe even religious folks. I know you reached those southwest corners of Virginia, the rural areas. What was that hurdle like in those places? Is it still a hurdle? Can a Republican who is openly gay actually win those folks over?
Part of the reason that I talked about it with you and with anybody else who was willing to interview me, if we rewind a year, and this was controversial, was I didn't want people to think I was hiding. And I didn't want people to think, oh, we've got him, or, he's a sneaky person, or I liked him, but now I've found out something about him that I don't like. I felt like is it an issue? To me and my friends, this isn't an issue. For a lot of Republicans, it's not an issue. But I'm not stupid. It is an issue, especially if you're an evangelical Christian.
Was it bigger than you thought?
Yeah, it was bigger than I thought.
The gay issue was bigger.
It was bigger than I thought, and it was a much. I thought by dealing with it head on, openly, and transparently, and taking any questions that anybody had, that I could put it on the table and move it off the table within the first few months. And that didn't happen. In fact, it became a real sore spot for a lot of people. And I'm so sad about that because, it'd be one thing if I was a provocateur who used foul language and behaved in a really ridiculous manner, or if you if you looked me up and you said, oh, this guy used to be a crazy left-wing liberal, or, I mean, when you look me up, you find out I worked for Ronald Reagan, I worked for George Allen, I've been an advocate for conservative principles my entire life. My dad was in the legislature as one of the most conservative.
And espousing them on the radio.
Yeah. I mean, defending these things very strongly. And so the fact that that didn't count for some people, not most people probably, and not all people, but that didn't count, that was surprising to me. And you know what I told people? I said, I'm not asking for your endorsement of me being gay. I really am not. I don't need that. I'm not asking for that. I'm not trying to be the associate pastor at your church. I'm trying to be the lieutenant governor, which means that I protect everybody's rights, including yours. And one of the things that I think is so awful is that those conservative Christians who did have concerns, and some of them stayed home and didn't vote for me, they are now going to be not led by, but ruled by people who have zero interest in protecting their rights. In fact, I would assert, and I guess we're going to find out whether this is true, that a lot of the modern Democrats have great disdain for Christian evangelical conservatives and will do everything they can to stomp them and isolate them into second-class citizenship status. And that's going to be awful, because that's, even when I disagree with people, and I hope people who've been around me over the years would say, John at least tries to be fair. He may not give up what he thinks, but he's not going to mistreat you because he disagrees with you. And I'm afraid that we're about to get a real bad lesson here.
Were people ugly? Was it ugly?
Some.
Yeah.
Some. Not most. I mean, most people were not. Look, most Virginians are polite people, and that's one reason that I'm glad this is my home state, and I am proud to be from here. Most people are polite, even if they disagree with you. Generally, they're polite. There was some ugliness. Now, there was ugliness left and right. I had people in Henrico, my home county. I was born at St. Mary's Hospital, grew up in Henrico, and I went and shook hands with probably 600 people the Saturday before the election, and I had people use the F word right to my face. I was like, wow, all right. Hey, I understand you're upset about the government shutdown. I don't have anything to do with that. And if it was up to me, I wouldn't just complain about it. I would reopen the government and then negotiate whatever needs to be negotiated. That's how I would run things. But that's not why I'm running, and I have nothing to do with it. And then there were people on the other side, on my side, who, Alonzo, my partner, knows me very well. We've been together almost 9 years now, and about 2 weeks after the election, he showed me some of the emails that came in that he deliberately hid from me. And, it's probably wise to do that. What was I going to do? If somebody's going to cuss you out and use really racist, foul language, what am I supposed to do with that? But it was a little shocking that there were still some people who were bold enough to sit at a computer and send an email to be that insulting. If you don't want to vote for me, look, no one owes me a vote. It's completely fine. I'm going to work to try to earn your vote. But I have to tell you, I was surprised by the vulgarity on both sides. I think the left wins the gold medal on vulgarity, to be honest with you. But I have to tell you, there was some ugliness.
I'm sure that hurt him as well. I mean, he's working. He was working so hard for you.
He was
too.
nonstop. Yeah. But he's when you're in an interracial relationship, these things do occasionally occur. Fortunately, the two of us have figured out a dance where we can work through it and support each other, and hopefully not lash out at other people, not let the toxicity poison our relationship or our interaction with other people. And he knows me well enough to have shielded me from that so that I could try to stay really positive on the campaign trail, and I'm appreciative of it. And he's a football player and has a competitive spirit. So if he was a softie, I think that would have hurt him and maybe crippled him. But as a guy and as a person, you have to be able to take these negatives and channel them.
Keep going. Yeah.
And find energy to do the right thing going forward. Or you can be poisoned by it and then start to do bad things. And then fortunately for us, I think both of us in our own way were able to channel that in the right direction.
Well, I think it was no secret that this ticket was a bit disjointed, and and that was evident on
At the beginning.
I mean, well, it was election night too. It's kind of evident. I mean, you guys all had separate events, and that's kind of unusual. And there were some reasons for that. So we're going to get into where those relationships stand now and why this fracture occurred, the untold story there, in our next segment. But right now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. If you're enjoying Untold, like and subscribe on YouTube. You can also rate and follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, and we're back with John Reid. Let's talk about the sort of difficult beginning of this campaign. Let's talk about Youngkin's call for you to step out of the race based on what he thought was a social media account of yours that had pornographic images. We kind of know the background a little bit. We know that you defended yourself, said these weren't mine, and he insisted that you step down. And there was a period of really painful days there. It was like 4 or 5 days before I think it became clear that you were just not going anywhere.
Well, it was more than that.
Was it?
And yeah, and I want to tell you, this is one of the frustrations I have. Politics is ugly. Mm-hmm. And, it's interesting. I was talking to Ronald Reagan's son 2 years ago, Michael Reagan. I was at the Reagan Library, and I worked for President Reagan, so I saw Michael, and I said, hey, you know what, I'm thinking of running for lieutenant governor. I'm not sure. And he said, well, you need to think, have you ever done anything? Because they will find it, and they will hang it around your neck, and they'll make stuff up too. And I thought, well, I've never been arrested. I've never smoked pot. I've never done drugs. I've never, am I a perfect person? No, but I don't think I've done anything that's outrageous.
Right.
Some things I probably wouldn't call my mother and say, guess what I just did? But,
that we all have that.
I don't have anything that I would go, oh my God, this is just so awful. I never texted suggesting that we kill people, or I've never driven 116 miles an hour and gotten a reckless driving ticket, for example, just say. So I thought, am I a perfect person? No, but I don't have that to worry about. Then I get into the race, and I knew something was wrong because the guy that I was running against, who was very well financed, very well known up in Northern Virginia, dropped out. He had a heart attack or had a heart problem.
Right. He
drops out. And no one called to congratulate me. And I thought, I'm now the nominee. And,
right.
I did everything right. I filed the paperwork. I even went around and asked everyone, is this okay with you? I went to the governor. I went to the leaders of the General Assembly. I called everybody because I didn't want people to think I was being sneaky or arrogant or obnoxious. If you really have a problem with me running or you think it's a bad idea, go ahead and tell me. And at least I can make an informed decision that you're not going to support me or that you'll undermine me. Nobody said that. The closest it came was one figure, and I probably shouldn't say their name, did say, I'm concerned that you will cost us votes, not because of you, but because of the gay issue. And I appreciated at least the candor, right? That's honest if you're asking for that feedback. So when I got the nomination, no one called me. And it was 24 hours. And I called my campaign manager and I said, am I being sensitive here, or is this weird? I don't understand. No one's calling and congratulating me, and they're not even mentioning me. It's like I don't exist, and I'm now officially the nominee. What the hell?
And by the way, getting those signatures is a lot of work.
Oh, it's 10,000 signatures
from all these different
all
corners
across the
of
state.
Right.
I mean, I had people try to rob me of money. I mean, at some point, I'll tell you, this is a collection of thieves in politics. I mean, there are a lot of people who take money and then don't do the work. But anyway, so when I got the nomination, finally people started calling me. And I told my mother, I went over to see her in Goochland and said, guess what? You're talking to the Republican nominee for lieutenant governor. And she was so proud. And I said, let's enjoy it for about an hour because I feel like something bad is coming. I don't know what it is, but instinctively, something's wrong. And she said, I think you're being sensitive. No, I was right. I think there was a concerted effort behind the scenes by some people who I think I know who they are to concoct a way to get rid of me. Probably for a variety of reasons. The gay issue, maybe sincerely they were worried that I would cost them votes instead of bring votes, which I would argue I think that I brought votes, but we could debate that. And I also am not a controllable person. And if there's one thing that I have witnessed now from a front row seat as a commentator and now as a candidate, is that political people who do have an investment, they're not just chess, they're not just playing chess. Like Glenn Youngkin has an investment in Virginia. He's personally, reputationally, financially.
Right.
They want people who are guaranteed to be team players. And ironically, I think I was the biggest team player of the year here because I didn't lash out at everybody. But I think they looked and said, we can't control this guy, and who is he? And there was an effort to get rid of me. And I was upset about that and still am. What really bothered me was to be blackmailed or an attempt at blackmail, because I was told to my campaign manager, and Alonzo went to a meeting, that if I didn't drop out, that I would be destroyed. And the only way for this to end, this nightmare, and it was a nightmare, for this to end was for me to drop out. And then they would buy this damning material and make sure nobody saw it. And I said to the campaign guy and to Alonzo, I said, put up or shut up. Show me what this damning material is.
Yeah.
You son of a gun.
Yeah.
What is it that you've got that you think would be so embarrassing? Because I've done an inventory of my life, and I've acknowledged in a way that no one who's ever run for public office has ever had to acknowledge the things that I've done as a young man. I mean, I stood in front of the entire state and told everybody up front.
I remember.
Right?
Yep.
5-minute video. And everyone told me, don't do it. John, don't. Oh, my God, don't do a video. I was like, no. They know me from television. They expect me to be up front. I'm going to stand in front of everybody and let them know what the deal is here. And in the end, they still tried to blackmail me. And I said, I am not, If you ever thought you could get rid of me, that is off the table now, because I will not be blackmailed with fake material. And if I had not had that conversation recorded, which I hate that. I don't like shady stuff. I mean, it's legal, but it still doesn't feel good. That's not how I interact with people. I never did that at the radio station. When I was an investigative reporter, I never did that kind of stuff. I didn't do the undercover camera thing. Had I not recorded that, I think they would have still tried to blackmail me. And when the recording was released, you heard very clearly a statement of, the only way that this attack is going to stop is for you to drop out, and then we'll make it go away. To hell with that. And Virginians should be angry, not because of me, but because that is not what I expect from people in the Commonwealth.
Who's to blame for that? Who's behind it?
Well, the culture, there's something going on, because when it occurred, my phone, all the people who didn't call me to congratulate me, my phone started to blow up with people saying, thank God, do you know this is the way it's been? I mean, people are getting bullied and, threatened, and this is why certain people said they were going to run, but they didn't. I didn't know that. You're in journalism. People call the TV station, the radio station, and tell you stories all the time.
Yeah.
And I used to listen at the radio station, especially. I'd listen and I'd go, look, thank you for telling me, but this is your word against this person's word.
I can't get into it.
And I'm a fair person. I'm not going to insinuate on the radio something that I can't prove. That's not right to do. Right. Even if it was someone that I didn't like, a political figure that I didn't like and didn't support, I just wouldn't do it. So to have that done to me was very upsetting. And I do think everyone in both political parties, because the Democrats did it to me later, they took the Republican smear attempt and they one-upped it later in the campaign.
Something about Nazi
ties
they
call me a
something.
Nazi and a white supremacist. Give me a break. I mean, if you're going to make something up about me, at least come up with something that people can believe.
Right.
I walked into Alonzo when that broke, and I said, oh, aren't you surprised that for 8 years you've been living with a white supremacist? And we laughed about it, but it wasn't something to laugh about, because now that story is out there. And one of the things that I resent so much about it is that when you call someone a Nazi in modern America, you're putting a target on their back. I mean, the last 4 months of the campaign, I was regularly wearing a bulletproof vest. I had to buy a bulletproof vest for Alonzo because the threats were that significant.
Wow.
We had to be careful whether we did events in public on an open street. Like, I don't know if you came to the press conference that I had when Ghazala Hashmi first got the Democrat nomination. I went and had a press conference out in front of a public school. There were woods, there were cars going by. I would not have been able to do that as the campaign progressed. Why? Because there was a very real concern that some crazy would have heard Nazi and blown my head off. I mean, this is Virginia?
Yeah.
Lieutenant governor? So, and I don't even hold an office, and people are regularly threatening to kill me. And so I resent very much Democrats who should have known better, Mike Jones being one of them, the delegate who's now running for the Senate, Adam Eben, shockingly, a gay guy.
You mentioned these people because they called for your resignation.
Yeah, and they went out and they repeated the lie. And they did it in very parsed legal language so that they wouldn't be vulnerable. I mean, they knew it was a lie, but they went out and said this stuff in public for political reasons. I resent that because you weren't just calling me something that you knew wasn't true. You were putting a target on my back and, quite frankly, trying to get me killed. And I will never forget it. I will never forgive it either.
In the decisions that were made and all of the scandals that came after, I think it left, I mean, I do recall a time where no one was doing events with you, really. It was all kind of separate. And then all of a sudden, right? I mean, that's true,
yeah.
right? It was like sort of like you were a bit of a pariah. They didn't want...
And if I said I was coming to something, everybody else canceled.
Right. And everybody else, meaning Winsome Sears and Jason Mieres, right? Like both of them were kind of like, we're not going to hold hands and kumbaya yet. It took a while.
It took a while.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we got to a place. You know, my goal in talking to you isn't to dredge up all the toxicity and negativity. It's to talk about how we did get to a place where we were doing events together. And, it should have been that way. We agreed on almost everything. It's like I told people, I said, Winsome and I don't agree on gay marriage. Okay. She's been honest. I appreciate that. I'm being honest. I hope people appreciate that. I hope the voters will recognize that. No one who voted for John Reid to go to the Capitol had any thought that when push comes to shove, I'm going to back down from what I think. And in fact, I said I won't vote for the marriage amendment because it doesn't protect religious people. Well, that ticked off all the gays, right? All my supposed friends were furious. And I said, look, I know I agree with you on the issue, but I've got to stand up for everybody's rights. Does that not matter anymore? Do you want someone who will stand up for everybody's rights? And that's going to put me at odds with people in my own party. I'm still willing to do it. And
speaking of
they
odds,
just wouldn't go along with it.
Odds in your own party. What are the relationships like now? I mean, we know that the kumbaya, right? That has an intention behind it because it's perception, right? Like you're still running, and so they want people to think it's unified. They want people to think it's, acceptance and moving on. What about after the race? Did anyone call you to say, gosh, John, you ran a great race. I'm sorry it didn't turn out your way?
I just saw the governor the other day in Williamsburg. He was very polite, very nice. I'm appreciative of that. Have we had a formal conversation about everything? No. I'm not sure that it fixes anything to go rehash all of that. No. But he was very polite. He doesn't have to be. He could walk right by me and act like I'm not there. He didn't do that.
Yeah.
Winsome called me on election night. And you know what? We were at event after event, and she and her family were so nice to me. Jason, the same thing. I saw Jason this weekend.
Yeah.
One thing that people forget, whether it's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or Donald Trump and Mike Pence, or now Vance. These are not necessarily best buds.
Right.
They're political allies.
Right.
And everybody doesn't really love each other. You just are trying. It's a team. You're trying to win.
Right.
But I will say, after a horrible start, everyone else got on board and acted like we were a team. And I think everyone has been polite and appropriate at the end, and I'm glad that that's where that is.
Looking back, do you think the fracture hurt the outcome? I mean, do you think...
I do. I think we wasted a lot of time. I think there was clearly, especially the extended period. Okay, a week or two where people are feuding is one thing. I didn't really even indulge that. The entire summer I went around and I promoted Glenn Youngkin because I do think Glenn Youngkin vetoed a lot of bad stuff, and he was aggressive on a lot of things that I think Virginians needed a good governor to be aggressive about. I don't think he is a flamboyant, reckless person, which is good. And so I think he deserves credit for that. I'm happy to give him credit for that. I'm happy to say good things about him. I'm not lying about that. I think that's true. I think Winsome stood up many times as lieutenant governor in a great way for Virginians. I've always liked Winsome. Do we agree on everything? No. Jason, I think, was a good attorney general. So it wasn't ever, I was willing to go out and advocate for these people because I'm sincere. I do think they did a good job.
You believe they would have been.
And that's one reason it was hurtful to me during the summer. Like, gosh, what is going on here? I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not asking you to say you love everything about me. I'm not asking you to agree with every policy. What is the holdup here? You should know by now I'm not going to leave. So,
right. You proved that.
Right?
Right.
So that was disappointing that's where we were. I'm just thankful to put a positive spin on it. Or to be honest with you, I do think we had damage done at the beginning. I did everything I could to fix that day in, day out, week after week after week, month after month. I did my best to say, if you will step up here with me, I will be a team player. And then I'm just thankful that as we crossed Labor Day, when people were really paying attention, everyone did do that. And I want to give credit to the governor and to Winsome and to Jason and most Republican activists because they said, hey, this is our team. And honestly, they're pretty good. Let's see if we can win.
Yeah,
let's try.
Well, I think your campaign, did a lot with a little, and I think that got the attention of some folks. And I'm sure, there's a lot of questions circulating about what's next, and we're going to talk about that in our next segment.
All right.
We'll be right back.
If you're enjoying Untold, like and subscribe on YouTube. You can also rate and follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
So, John, the future is wide open, and my sense, just in talking to you and knowing you, is that you have been bitten by the politics bug, and now this is going to be your future. But maybe I'm wrong. Am I?
This was pretty rough.
I know it was. Yeah. But I still felt like I was looking at those Facebook pictures of you, and every day you would pop up somewhere else in the state, and maybe it was just good photography. I don't know. But I was like, he really looks like this. I don't know. It really looked like you were enjoying yourself. And it looked like you might have.
People.
Yeah.
And I love Virginia.
Yeah.
That's the reason I gave up my job. I mean, it was a big job with a big paycheck.
Yeah.
And I went from good money to nothing.
Right.
And I'm anxious about what next year looks like. Alonzo got doged. So you have two guys in a household with no money coming in right now. That's scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't sleep at night. The campaign's over, but I got to figure out what I'm going to do going forward. So I'm starting the podcast in January, the Reid Revolution, and hopefully it's a revolution towards peace and prosperity rather than a horrible revolution like I have actually witnessed when I've traveled around the world to over 100 countries. Most revolutions do not bring peace and prosperity. They bring misery and death and economic despair. And I'm going to try to be a voice on some level to advocate for public policy positions and a general attitude amongst the population that will put us in a better place.
Are you going to run again?
I don't know. I mean, this was rough, and I think I could do a good job.
Would you run for something less? Would you run for like a Senate seat or a delegate seat?
I don't know. Maybe. My dad was a delegate, and I think he did a lot of good work. He stopped a lot of bad things from happening in Virginia when he was in the House of Delegates. And I remember talking to him right before he died. We were over at Lakewood Manor, which is he was in the hospice care. And every night I would go spend 12 hours at the hospital because I didn't want him to die alone. And I was doing the radio program in the morning, and at night I would sit up with him because you know how it is.
You just never know when
you
that
never
moment
know,
comes.
and they can't sleep at night. So we would talk, and I said, Dad, you didn't introduce a lot of legislation. And he said, I realized soon after I got there, and he was in the minority. The Republicans were really in the minority and treated badly by the Democrats then. He said, one thing I can do is stop bad things from happening. And that was insight, that you don't have to go to the Capitol and micromanage everybody's life and fix their problems, because you're probably not going to. In fact, you could make them worse. But you can stop other people from micromanaging things and not being aware of the unintended consequences. Like, I think the Democrats in January and February of 2026 are going to go in and they're going to take this win, which was a win. I can't deny it. I can't take it away from them. They won. But I think they're going to go in with an arrogance and an attitude that every position that they espouse is legitimate and good. And I don't think that's what Virginians voted on. And I think Virginians will be appalled by some of the initiatives that they'll promote, especially when it comes to criminal justice issues and economic issues. I think business people who were kind of like, ooh, this is uncomfortable, and walked away are going to be very unhappy when they get a minimum wage that they can't afford to pay, and they're going to have to lay off employees. I think the unions coming in and running a lot of things in Virginia, and employees who've been used to deciding whether they want to be in a union or not, and now they're going to be forced into a union, likely, if we lose the right to work in Virginia. I think that's going to be an unpleasant reality. And then all of us, this is really bad. We've all benefited from a pretty robust economic ecosystem in Virginia, and that is largely because we're the northernmost state with the right to work, and businesses like that. I was the communications director at the United States Chamber of Commerce, and I promise you, these businesses like Lego coming to Chesterfield County. I was just over in Chesterfield where they're touting that. That isn't just because Chesterfield's got good schools and a nice piece of property. It's because the culture, the business culture, welcomes businesses. And I think that may be about to change. So I feel like I can advocate for responsible positions as a citizen, as a person who will be in the media on some level. And maybe if the right thing opens up as an elected official, we'll see.
How soon could you stomach another campaign? I mean, are you still, where are you with the processing of this last one? Have you let go of all that toxicity? Do you feel like you could just turn the page and start over? Or is it still,
I'm working on it.
Are you still grieving? Do you feel like it's, some days you look up and you're like, man, I wish I would have won?
I do wish I would have won. I am frustrated that the lady who did win didn't have a debate. That sticks in my craw because, normally I try to be a gentleman, and I was in competitive athletics growing up, and so if you lose, you got to be prepared to lose. But you're used to losing with someone who actually shows up to play tennis, or somebody who shows up on the football field, or somebody who stands at the starting line of the track meet and actually runs the race. Right. And with, Senator Hashmi, she didn't do that. She basically stayed in her basement, refused to do any public debates.
Did she ever tell you why she didn't?
I met her twice, I think. Twice.
Just wonder if she ever responded to the campaign and said, this is why I don't want to.
No, we sent emails. It is
unusual. Yeah.
We sent, people said, oh, did you actually invite her? Yeah, we invited her. We sent emails regularly, like, here's an opportunity. And there was just no interest in debating issues. And the insult was, and this ticked me off, because, I think Senator Hashmi is a terrible senator. And I think the initiatives that she pushed as a senator were horrible for Virginia, horrible for kids, horrible for students. I think she's done a terrible job, and I have no doubt she'll be a terrible lieutenant governor, I think, if she stays on this trajectory. But that's okay. She has a right to run. I respect that she got her party's nomination. I respect that, right? But I don't respect her telling people that she didn't consider me to be a legitimate candidate with serious policy positions. Hey, lady, and everybody else, I hope you'll go to the website. I was the only candidate out of the 6 who routinely put out policy positions every week. trying to solve problems that Virginians were dealing with. Everybody else was having some consultant whisper in their ear and put out little ads that are throwaway garbage. I actually sat with people and tried to come up with solutions. And to me, that's a part of why, if you're running for office, you should articulate those ideas. You should show you're serious. And I did that, and I was still treated by her and many people around her like I wasn't. I do resent that.
Should probably articulate myself that we have asked Ghazala Hashmi several times to come on Untold, and she has declined. So putting
That's
that
not
out
a
there.
surprise.
Putting that out
She
there.
didn't do
just
any of these.
For balance
Yeah,
purposes.
she didn't do any of these.
Yeah, well,
And very few interviews, to be honest with you.
yeah, there was not a lot of visibility on the local media front, for sure. We did try during the campaign to kind of get everybody, but not everybody's willing to sit down for an hour. I mean, it is a
That's
huge...
why I congratulate her on defeating Donald Trump, because she ran against Donald Trump. When she opened her mouth, it was about Donald Trump. And then she spent $2 million to act like I hate public education, which everybody knows isn't true, since my father was a principal, my mother was a public school teacher, my whole family, I went to public schools. Give me a break.
I think there was like a fair amount of coverage of the fact that she was not debating.
When I did the AI debate,
you did,
when I
yes,
did the
you
I had
made
to come
it-
up with gimmicks
Yeah.
to get attention to the fact that she wouldn't debate.
Yeah.
And that was all me thinking, how do I draw attention to the fact that she won't do this? And even with the AI debate, which people were, there were people calling me from Asia, news operations at the BBC. Oh my gosh, the first artificial intelligence debate. And you know what they wanted to talk about? The ethics of AI. And I said, how about the ethics of running for public office and not doing a debate? And if you watch the debate, which is still online, I made a editorial decision as a former journalist that I was not going to exploit or misrepresent her. I was not going to turn this into something that would be unfair to my opponent. Everything was cited. Everything was a policy position that she had said in an interview. I didn't take the worst thing she ever said and say, let's pretend that this is representative of who she is. Let's, her own campaign criticized it, which I guess is normal. But when we said, was there anything that you were concerned misrepresented her? They said, oh, well, she won the debate because her positions are better, which validates that I was more fair in creating this content than anybody should have expected me to be. And I hope people, when they look back, will say, you know what, maybe you disagree with me on this or that, but at least John Reid fundamentally is a fair man, even with somebody he's angry with.
What are you looking back and saying about the campaign? I mean, if you had to put it in a thesis statement, I look back on this campaign as... What would you say you're saying about it?
I was in it for the right reasons, because I care about the future of Virginia. This is where I was born. This is where my family is, my niece and nephew, my sister, my brother-in-law. This is where my family lives. I'm not just here to retire. No offense to people who are here to retire. This isn't a stop on my media career. This is my home. And so I chose to make some very big sacrifices, which were my choices. I'm not asking anybody to cry for me, but I made a calculated decision that this was important to do, and I got into this for the right reasons. And I do think that even with all the horrible things that happened during the campaign, and the vindictiveness and the backstabbing and the blackmail and the lies and the threats, I'm glad I was able to stand up for Virginia. I'm proud that I stood up for myself. I think I proved that no one's going to bully me ever. If you see me as the greeter at Walmart next week, or whether I'm running for office again, no one's bullying me. And I hope that will be a lesson to young gay men and women. I had a couple of gay people say, oh, you're a terrible role model. I'm like, am I? I advocated for you 20 and 30 years ago for gay marriage and for gays in the military when that was not safe to do. I risked my career in media by standing up for the gay community then. And I'm still out there fighting my own fight almost by myself with a couple of notable people who stepped up to help me, but not a lot of them. And I'm still honest and open about who I am. And I hope that the average person, And you know what? Gay or straight, stand up for yourself. If you haven't done anything wrong, if you are confident, if you are a decent person, don't let yourself get rolled over and bullied. And I'm proud that I stayed in the race. I think I have conducted myself in a responsible, decent way. I think even the people who were mean and nasty to me, I tried to turn the other cheek and tried to engage with them. The only people I'm angry about, still angry with, are the people who knew that they were telling a lie and continued to perpetuate it. And I got a score to settle on that. But honestly, I feel like I focused on economic issues and cultural issues and educational issues that needed to be discussed, and I wish everybody else had focused on that. I feel really good about the campaign. I'm sick that it was a loss, but sometimes you got to discuss these issues, and maybe in the future there'll be some revelation. Hey, that guy, remember that John Reid guy? Remember when he was talking about that? He was right. I think that may be where we're headed. I
got to ask you can't say score to settle and then not have me follow up on that.
Oh, okay.
What's the score? Is this like lawsuit?
Oh, I'm not a litigious. I've never sued anybody. I'm not a litigious person.
How do you settle it?
Confront people about it, I guess.
Okay.
I guess.
So you're not doing it like mobster style.
Oh,
no one's getting a pair of concrete boots or throwing in the James River.
If I was that kind of person, you would have known it a long time ago.
I'm
but
just kidding.
Yeah. But I'm also not going to just forget. You can't lie about me, put a target on my back, try to blackmail me, and then expect me just to say, oh, that's not a problem. That's a problem for me. And Virginians, it should be a problem for Virginians.
Yeah.
That's one reason why I wanted to be so upfront and honest with both that video and with the numerous interviews where I had to answer the same question over and over again. It's like, all right, come on, let's do this. Let's take it head on.
Yeah.
And when it's over, you're going to see who the liars are, and you're going to see somebody like me who will answer every question and over and over and over again. And in the end, I'm hoping that counts for something. Because you know what every consultant said? Oh, my God, don't talk to anyone. I'm sure if I'd called them before I came to see you today, they would have said, don't talk to her.
Yeah.
Do it next year. Well, no. Why not? Let's talk about it. It's been a month. Let's talk about it.
Well, I'm sure grateful that you did, John. I'm always grateful that you'll talk to me. Thank you.
Well, I also feel like you'll give me a fair shake.
Yeah, I do. I try. And I, as I always do on the show, I really try to let my guest tell their story. It's not, I'm not the one with the story, you are. So I'm happy to hear it and happy to have you. And thank you so much for coming today.
I'm glad to see you.
Yeah, and I'm sure I will be making a return call to have you back again.
Hopefully we've got some great news and some good issues. And
my hunch is you'll be running again. I'll put that on the record.
We'll
see if I'm right or wrong. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Untold is a production of WTVR CBS 6. Executive produced by Mike Bergazzi and Katie Beck, directed by Nick Maharaj and Brock Taylor, and edited by April Harshman. Follow the show on Instagram at Untold_WTVR.